What do you do if you want to make intricate quilt blocks with points that match every time? Try paper piecing, of course. Hi, I'm Angela Walters. I'm going to show you how paper piecing can help guarantee perfection when it comes to complex and not so complex quilt blocks. Let's start with a few tips for beginning. First, you need paper. For this project, I'm using thin foundation paper. Any type of paper will work, but a thinner paper will be easier to rip out later. You'll also need to print out your paper pieced quilt pattern. You'll need a copy for each block or portion of the block, depending on the pattern. It'll have numbers depicting the order the fabric should be sewn on. The lines are your sewing lines. You will be sewing directly onto the paper. Place fabric 1 so that the wrong side of the fabric touches the back side of the pattern. The fabric should overlap the section marked as number 1 by about an inch. Holding the paper and the fabric up to a light will help ensure that it's placed correctly. Pin the fabric to the paper to help keep it from moving. Pick a scrap of fabric for section number 2. Make sure that it covers the section and also extends past the sewing lines. Place the fabric for section 2 on top of fabric 1 so that the right sides are touching. Re-pin on the paper side, holding both pieces in place. This will help keep them from shifting during sewing. Remember, shorten the stitch on your sewing machine. A length of 1.0 will make it easier to rip out the paper later on. With the paper on top, stitch carefully along the line between section 1 and 2, beginning and ending a few stitches beyond the line. On your cutting area, carefully fold the paper back along the line you just stitched. Using a rotary cutter and ruler, trim the fabric a 1/4 inch away from the paper. This is an important step. I left this out the first time I paper pieced and it was a mess. Flip the block over so that the fabric is on the top. Using a dry, hot iron, press the second fabric into place. Flip the block again so that the numbers are showing. Fold the paper along the line between section 2 and 3. Trim the excess fabric, adding the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Take your third fabric and align the raw edge with this cut edge, making sure it overlaps into the next section. Stitch on the line between the second and third section. Repeat the previous step of folding the paper back and trimming the fabric away a 1/4 inch from the seam. Press as before. Continue sewing the fabrics onto the block in the order shown in the pattern. When all the sections are filled in, it's time to press and trim the block. I like to spray the block with starch and press it with a dry, hot iron. Once dry, it's time to trim the block, including the 1/4 inch seam allowance. Before you start cutting, check to see if the 1/4 inch seam allowance is on the pattern or not. Trust me, it's heartbreaking to piece the whole block, only to trim it incorrectly. To sew the blocks together, line them up, pin, and sew. Once you're sure the block will not be sewn to another unit or paper piece block, it's time to remove the paper. This is the perfect chore to do while watching your favorite TV show. If the paper is tough to remove, you can lightly spritz it with water, or use a seam ripper to get the paper out of tight corners. Whether it's a simple quilt block or a more complex one, knowing how to paper piece will help ensure perfect points every time. Thanks for watching! Get expert quilting instruction, free resources, and supplies for your next project by clicking the I in the top right corner of this video.